Most people enter a room hoping to be liked. Powerful people enter a room calculating how to be obeyed. In this video, we shall dissect the architecture of presence, not as a performance but as a weapon. You will learn how dominance is not claimed, systemically constructed. In the theater of power, presence is not a trait, it is a device. Like the lion's roar or the fox's silence, it is crafted, adjusted, and deployed. The weak crave to be seen, but the strong design how they are perceived. In this dissection of dominance, we strip charisma of its illusion and expose the mechanics beneath the mask. Presence, in the hands of the powerful, is not accidental. It is engineered. Welcome to the anatomy of strategic perception. You think power begins with action? It doesn't. Power begins long before that, with perception. Before you move, before you speak, before you even enter the room, you've already lost or already won. Understand this: the first battlefield is not the boardroom, the palace, or the dinner table. It is the mind of your observer. Ask yourself, how do others see you before they hear you? Not who you are, but who they believe you are. Because belief in the game of power is stronger than truth. Consider César Borgia. He did not merely conquer lands, he conquered imagination. His presence preceded him like a shadow stretching across the map. When he arrived in a city, resistance melted, not because he drew his sword, but because his name had already done the work. Perception is a weapon forged in the minds of others. It is planted, nurtured, and harvested with precision. And most importantly, it is never left to chance. Look around you. How many people walk through life unaware of the image they cast? They laugh too freely. They speak too quickly. They overshare. They confuse sincerity with strength. And so, their presence enters diluted, forgettable, harmless. But the powerful, they do the opposite. They construct perception the way an architect draws blueprints. Deliberate lines, no accidents. They shape how others must view them. Authoritative, enigmatic, unshakable, they become symbols rather than individuals. Why? Because once you are a symbol, people stop questioning your intentions and start reacting to your aura. The ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu wrote, "All warfare is based on deception." What is perception but a socially accepted deception? Imagine two leaders entering a negotiation. One smiles, jokes, leans forward. The other says nothing, gazes calmly, remains unreadable. Which one do you feel compelled to impress? Which one are you already yielding to, without realizing it? This is not charisma. This is war by psychological means, and most people are unarmed. Your face, your voice, your timing, each is a chess piece in the game of perception. To be powerful, you must learn to place them with precision. Take the Roman general Sulla. He rarely raised his voice, he rarely made threats, but his name made men tremble. He cultivated an image so severe, so unpredictable, that even when he showed mercy, it was mistaken for strategy. You must ask, what do people feel when you enter a room? Relief, curiosity, fear? If the answer is nothing, you are invisible, and in power, invisibility is death. Now consider the psychology. Humans are cognitive misers. We don't analyze, we assume. We form impressions in seconds. We look for authority, confidence, danger. We assign value based on how others carry themselves, not who they truly are. This is the glitch. And the powerful exploit it. They walk slowly. They speak sparingly. They dress to signal, not to express. Every gesture is a suggestion planted in the minds of others. It is not manipulation. It is strategic visibility. Why waste time convincing others with facts when you can dominate them with presence? Reflect for a moment. What is a crown? A piece of metal? No, it is a symbol infused with meaning, authority, divine right, supremacy. The crown is nothing until others believe it means everything. You must become your own crown. Let others project their fears, hopes, and assumptions onto you. You give them the shape. They fill it with power. This is the art of perception. This is how presence is systemic, woven into the reactions of those around you, repeated, amplified, until it hardens into reputation. But here's the brutal truth. You cannot control what others think. You can only control what they see. And if you do that well enough, they will start controlling themselves around you. like pawns who move of their own will, yet always in the direction you designed. You've seen it before. The boss no one interrupts. The speaker who says little, but silences the room. The figure who walks in, and suddenly everyone adjusts their tone. That is presence, weaponized. That is power, systemic. And it all begins with how you're perceived. Not tomorrow, not later. But in the first second your name is mentioned, or your shadow falls across the floor. Now ask yourself, who do people believe you are? In the next segment, we expose the second layer of power, a weapon few dare to use and fewer survive without: silence. Silence, most fear it. The insecure rush to fill it. But the powerful, they wield it. Let me ask you, why do you speak? To be heard, to be understood, to prove your intelligence. None of these are reasons a strategist speaks. Words are tools, not therapy. And silence is the scalpel that cuts deeper. Consider this: in every conversation, there is a contest for control. Most people compete with volume. The powerful compete with tension. They understand a law that weak minds ignore. The less you say, the more others project. The less you reveal, the more others obey. Now picture a ruler in ancient Persia. He is surrounded by advisors. They debate, they flatter, they argue. But he says nothing. He sits, watching, letting the silence swell. Each man begins to question his own words. Each tries harder to impress, to explain, to fill the void. And the ruler, he watches, he listens, he dominates, without lifting his voice. This is silence used as pressure, as leverage, as a weapon. The human mind hates uncertainty. Silence creates uncertainty. And so, the mind rushes to resolve it, usually in your favor. Psychologically, silence triggers anxiety in others. They begin negotiating with themselves, fearing your disapproval, imagining your thoughts, projecting their own insecurities into your stillness. That is control, not through force, but through absence. Ask yourself, when was the last time you let silence do your work? Think of interrogators. The good ones do not shout, they wait. They say nothing. They let the subject sit in a cold, quiet room. And eventually, they talk. They confess. Not from pressure, but from the unbearable discomfort of not being answered. The silence becomes a mirror, and the guilty crack under their own reflection. Now apply this to power dynamics. Imagine your enemy insults you. Most would react, defend, strike back. But the master of silence does not respond. Why? Because they know to answer is to dignify. To speak is to acknowledge. To remain silent is to make the opponent vanish into irrelevance. This is not passivity. It is dominance disguised as restraint. Consider the fox, cunning, elusive, quiet. Its silence is its survival. It waits in the shadows, speaks only when needed, and never shows its hand too early. In contrast, the dog barks at every shadow. It makes noise. It draws attention. It exhausts itself trying to appear strong. And who do people follow? The fox, always the fox. Let me tell you a truth few will admit. Power is not loud. Power is quiet, because it does not beg to be noticed. And that is the mistake of the amateur. They talk too much. They explain themselves. They fill every space with noise, hoping to be understood. But the more you explain, the more ground you give. Silence keeps the high ground. It makes others lean toward you. It forces them to guess. And in guessing, they reveal themselves. This is how silence becomes surveillance. Not only does it intimidate, it gathers. Every second you remain still, others reveal their motives, their fears, their calculations. You say nothing, but you learn everything. Take Napoleon. At court, he often allowed long silences. He watched how people reacted. Those who grew nervous, he distrusted. Those who filled the space with flattery, he discarded. But the ones who understood, the ones who embraced silence as signal, those he kept close. So now, ask yourself, can you remain silent when attacked? Can you pause long enough to make others sweat? Can you say less and make it feel like more? Because the powerful do not fear being misunderstood. They use it. Every pause is a test. Every quiet moment a negotiation. Every withheld word an invitation for others to overstep. And when they do, you strike. Cleanly, quietly, without warning. But that only works if you resist the urge to explain, to entertain, to be liked. Your silence must not be emptiness. It must be tension. And when mastered, it speaks louder than any voice. Now you know why powerful people are feared before they speak. Because the silence surrounding them is louder than noise. But silence is only half the blade. The other half is how they move when they finally do speak. In the next segment, we decode the system beneath their presence, the method to their aura, the algorithm that turns silence into total command. Charisma is not magic, presence is not mysticism, and power is not a feeling. It is an algorithm. Repeat that until it burns into your thinking. Presence is not a vibe, it is a system. The weak drift into rooms. They rely on mood, instinct, emotion. They hope their personality will be enough, but the powerful, they don't hope. They calculate. They engineer how they are perceived. Now tell me, what does your walk say about you? What of your pause before speaking create in others? How long do you hold a gaze? And what does it cost the other person to look away first? These are not soft skills. These are tools of control. And the powerful do not leave them to chance. Think of it like a machine, a network of nonverbal cues, verbal rhythms, spatial positioning, emotional tension. When combined, these create the illusion of dominance while giving away nothing real. Let's go back to ancient Rome. Julius Caesar knew how to enter a room, not by raising his voice or flaunting gold, but by moving slowly, speaking sparsely, and commanding attention through precision. He rehearsed what seemed spontaneous. He calculated what looked instinctive. Because he understood to rule minds, one must first rule signals. This is the algorithm of presence. Take the eyes, for example. The average man avoids eye contact out of fear. The fool holds it too long to appear confident. The powerful modulate, piercing when needed, withholding when useful, not to connect but to control. Now posture. The amateur slouches or stiffens. The skilled operator orchestrates posture like stagecraft, upright but not rigid, relaxed but not careless. They use space like it belongs to them, because psychologically it already does. Let's talk speech. Have you noticed how powerful figures rarely rush? They leave silence between sentences as if time bends to their rhythm. This isn't laziness, it's frame control. The one who controls the pace controls the frame. And the frame controls the narrative. You've seen it in modern politics. A leader is asked a hostile question. He pauses, smiles slightly, reframes the question, and answers his version of it. And the audience, they forget what was asked. They only remember what he wanted them to hear. This is not charisma. This is a script written beneath the surface, a behavioral code. And here's the dark truth most people are running on default. They give away their status in their tone, their anxiety in their movements, their desperation in their pace. The powerful read these signs, and worse, they exploit them. Because presence is not about authenticity. It is about advantage. Now ask yourself, how do you sit when you want control? How do you speak when you want to disarm? What does your stillness say about your threat level? The ones who win are not the most genuine. They are the most consistent. And consistency is a system. It is architecture beneath appearance. Let me give you an example. In high-stakes negotiations, top corporate negotiators often enter late. They don't apologize. They let the tension build. They sit at the head of the table without asking. They speak last, because the last word, even if soft, echoes loudest. Every action calculated, every silence deliberate, every position strategic. That's not a vibe. That's a program running beneath the skin. Even in warfare, this truth holds. The Mongol commanders did not shout commands in battle. They used flags, precise, systemic, and yet, entire armies moved like a single body. This is presence turned algorithm. Cold, controlled, unbreakable, and yet, most people will never see it. They will call it charisma. They will say, he just has something, as if presence is divine. No, it is designed. So here's your choice. Do you continue drifting, letting others interpret you by chance? Or do you begin crafting the walk, the tone, the gaze, the silence, the frame, every signal refined until your presence moves people before your words ever arrive? Because if your presence doesn't systemically signal power, then you have already surrendered it. And now we turn to the next layer, where power isn't just seen, it's felt. Next, we study indifference. Not as an emotion, but as a weapon. Indifference is misunderstood. It is not apathy. It is not carelessness. It is not numbness. Indifference is control, cold, surgical. A conscious decision to reveal nothing while observing everything. Let me ask you, what do you reveal when you react? When you flinch? When your face contorts with offense, approval, or need? You reveal leverage. Emotions are signals. Each one is a confession. Approval shows desire. Anger shows vulnerability. Excitement shows hunger. And the world is full of predators trained to read those signs. Now imagine removing all that. Imagine becoming emotionally unreadable. What happens? You become untouchable. Consider the Borgias. In the blood-stained courts of Renaissance Italy, every reaction could be fatal. So the wise trained themselves to respond with a mask, not to deceive, but to survive. The most dangerous man in the room wasn't the loud one. It was the one who heard betrayal and smiled. Indifference unnerves people. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't tell what you want. And most importantly, they can't manipulate what they can't measure. That is real power. Ask yourself, how often do you display your inner world like an open wound? Do you show delight when praised? Do you flinch when insulted? Do you chase, explain, prove? Then you are predictable, and the predictable can be played. Indifference is the opposite of desperation. It is the posture of someone who does not need the outcome, and therefore controls the outcome. In negotiations, the side that cares lesser wins more. Why? Because they walk away when others can't. And the power to walk away is the most terrifying power of all. Let's go deeper. Psychologically, humans crave validation. We want to be mirrored, echoed, affirmed. When someone reacts to us, we feel powerful. But when they don't, we panic. This is where indifference becomes psychological warfare. When someone insults you and you respond with a shrug, you starve their need for significance. When someone flirts, flatters, or provokes, and your face remains calm, you invert the power dynamic. They begin chasing your validation, not because you gave it, but because you withheld it. This is what powerful people understand. Attention is currency. Emotion is a transaction, and indifference is a refusal to pay. Let me show you how it works in leadership. A leader who is easily flattered becomes a puppet. A leader who is easily angered becomes a tool. But a leader who remains detached, who listens without leaning in, who decides without explaining, becomes an object of mystery, and mystery breeds respect. Then fear. Then obedience. Think of Queen Elizabeth I. She ruled in a world dominated by men, surrounded by courts of spies, traitors, and foreign threats. Yet she revealed almost nothing. She played her suitors against each other. She delayed, withheld, smiled. And while others begged for her hand, she ruled alone. Impervious to pressure. That is indifference as weaponry. Let's bring this to the modern world. You text someone, they reply instantly. You feel important, dominant. You delay your next reply. Suddenly, they feel uncertain, eager. This is not romance. This is hierarchy. You raise your value not by chasing, but by showing you don't need to chase. The most magnetic people are those who radiate calm, self-containment, and choice. They are desired precisely because they do not seek desire. They are respected because their silence is harder to win than another's approval. Now consider this. What if your indifference isn't real? What if it's a mask? Does it still work? Yes, because the perception is what matters. Remember, power is not what you feel. It's what others believe you feel. The world reacts not to your truth, but to your performance. And when your performance is indifference, others offer more, trying to pull you in. More attention, more explanation, more value. In remaining neutral, you attract extremes. And extremes are easier to manipulate. But beware, indifference must never drift into arrogance. The key is to care deeply, strategically, while appearing unaffected. Behind the mask, your mind is active, calculating, weighing, positioning. Outwardly, you give nothing, and that nothing drives others mad. Now, imagine combining indifference with precision, silence, frame control. Every move designed, every reaction denied. You become not a person, but a force. And yet, there's one more territory left. One domain where power doesn't just observe or withhold. It seizes. In the next segment, we leave indifference behind and enter conquest. Every room you walk into is not neutral. It is not safe. It is not equal. It is a battlefield waiting to be claimed. And most people are asleep to this fact. Let me ask you, when you enter a space, do you assess hierarchy? Do you scan for the weak, the loud, the insecure? Do you instinctively identify who holds power in and who thinks they do? Or do you just blend in? Understand this hierarchy is not always official. It is rarely spoken. But it is always present. In every room, someone leads. And if that someone is not you, then you are already beneath them. The powerful know this. That's why they never enter a room casually. They enter like it's a throne room, because, for them, it is. Take Alexander the Great. He was not the largest man in the army, not the strongest, but when he entered the room, every eye turned. Not because of charm, because of strategy. He placed himself where visibility was maximum, where every gesture became a signal. He walked like he had already won, and those around him adjusted as if he had. You must do the same. Step 1 claims space. The weak shrink themselves. They sit at the edge. They lower their shoulders. They hide behind politeness. But space is psychological. When you occupy more of it, physically and vocally, others yield. Not by choice, but by instinct. This is primal. Dominance displays exist in every social species. Watch wolves, lions, or men in suits. The one who spreads out speaks last and moves slow, signals control. The one who fidgets, rushes, or laughs too quickly signals submission. Step 2. Control tempo. If hierarchy is about status, tempo is about frame. Who controls the speed of the conversation? Who changes topics? Who interrupts? And who waits? The one who controls tempo controls perception. And perception is the scaffolding of power. Want proof? In elite interrogations, the agent never matches the suspect's rhythm. He controls it. He slows the pace to provoke discomfort. He inserts silence like daggers, and the suspect, unable to sync, begins to break. Apply this socially. When you enter a group, do not adapt. Observe. Let them feel your delay. Let them adjust to you. That's frame dominance. Step 3. Seed influence early. You don't seize power by screaming. You plant it subtly. A well-placed comment. A challenge masked as curiosity. A gesture that makes others defer, without knowing why. Consider a meeting. Most people wait for permission to speak. The powerful create the moment. They interrupt not with noise, but with gravity. They disagree not to argue, but to reshape the room's alignment. Power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being recognized as necessary. Now reflect on this. Who gets remembered when the meeting ends? The agreeable, or the one who redefined the conversation? Powerful people use every room like a stage. They choose their words like weapons, their silence like traps, their placement like pawns before checkmate. They aren't present. They're positioned. And once positioned, they don't need permission to lead. They simply begin, and the rest follow, grateful to be relieved of the burden of direction. Now ask yourself, do people defer to your opinion? Do they look at you before they answer? Do they adjust their tone when you speak? If not, you are in someone else's frame. You are reacting to power, not creating it. But here lies the advantage. Most people are unaware a hierarchy even exists. They don't compete, because they don't know the game has started. And so, the aware man wins, not because he's louder, but because he sees the invisible battlefield under every conversation, every meeting, every gathering. He sees the room as a territory to conquer. Subtlety becomes his sword, position his fortress, silence his war cry. And when he walks out, the room feels emptier, because his presence didn't fill it, it ruled it. So the next time you step into a space, do not blend, do not observe, do not ask where you belong. Decide, then make them feel it. Because the ones who claim the room eventually claim the world. But what happens once you have the room? Once all eyes are on you, what keeps you from becoming predictable? In the next segment, we explore that answer. We study the final layer of presence. Not what you show, but what you conceal. Power is never taken by force alone. The most effective control is invisible. You do not need to dominate others when you can direct them, when their choices are the ones you planted, when their respect is fear wearing a friendly mask. You do not need to shout. You do not need to plead. You only need to design perception and disappear behind it. That is the art of true influence. Not through noise, but through precision. Not through force, but through presence. The greatest manipulators are never seen as manipulators. They are seen as natural leaders, magnetic personalities, or worse, good people. Ask yourself, are you shaping the game, or still playing by rules written by others? If this struck a nerve, speak below, not with emotion, but with strategy. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more psychological warfare, and share this video with someone you might one day have to outmaneuver. Remember, those who watch quietly often rule silently.